Hello everyone and welcome to Edable, where we leverage technology for transformation through education. Today, students exiting high school are greatly unprepared for the challenges of life in the real world. Public schools fail in providing all students with the skills and knowledge necessary for success. Edable seeks to fill in the gaps of knowledge in students leaving school by focusing on two critical but often overlooked skills: financial literacy and civic engagement. Through the development of these two critical skills, all adolescents transitioning into a post-secondary environment will have the ability to take control of their socioeconomic futures. Hello, my name is Nicholas Matula, founder and CEO of Edable. I want to tell you a little story about an experience I had while teaching in a Title I school in New York City. One of my students, an incredible young girl, began to fall behind. She would show up late to class, if ever at all, and the pattern continued to grow. It turned out that this student had become homeless and recently lost the ability to maintain a consistent school schedule due to her movement between shelters, her mother's car, and couches of welcoming friends, and sometimes even strangers. For this student, like many others, the traditional school system not only failed in reaching her due to her inconsistent school attendance, but the skills in math, science, and history, which are great for students planning to go to college, simply lacked any foundation in providing this student with any applicable knowledge to change her experience in the real world. The quadratic equation and an understanding of the American Revolution simply won't provide food, shelter, or much hope for this young girl. Months would go by without seeing her, but because she had a cellular device, we were able to communicate and check in and sometimes send schoolwork home when possible. For this student, the public schools simply failed in supporting her development and allowed her to fall through the cracks. Unfortunately, I do not know where the student is now, but I hope for the best. Edable seeks to support individuals like this, as well as all students who are provided with inadequate education. Had this student been able to access content on civic engagement and financial literacy through her mobile device, she could have possibly gained the skills and knowledge to critically change her own lived experience. This was a single experience, but looking at the United States as a whole, we can see a startling trend in terms of financial stability and civic participation. Two numbers stand out: 22.7% and 1.5 trillion. These numbers paint a complete picture where public schools fail. 22.7% is the percentage of 18-year-olds who voted in the 2018 midterm election. And mind you, this was the highest midterm turnout for decades. That means more than 77% of 18-year-olds are not participating in the political process. Schools fail in preparing students for the political process. Now, 1.5 trillion. This is the number and the amount of student loan debt within the United States as of 2018. This number is surely to rise with increased tuition costs and increased competition across universities. Students are strapped with bills in the six figures with limited to no knowledge in financial management, another failure of the public school system. Through Edable's learning modules, public school students can now gain the foundational knowledge in civic participation and financial management that will allow for self-dependence, self-determinism, and overall success for future generations of Americans. Now let's talk market size. Currently, within the United States, there are 55 million K-12 students nationwide who could potentially access and leverage Edable as a learning tool. In Arizona alone, there are over 1 million currently enrolled secondary school students who could pilot or gain initial access to the platform. Finally, education is a multi-billion-dollar industry with over $706 billion spent on education in 2016 alone, which means there's plenty of room for growth within the ecosystem. What makes Edable unique is that it's not seeking to market directly on students, but the target users are the school districts who can provide access to large numbers of students. These would be set up as annual contracts with user plans that can range from several dozens of students for small districts to tens of thousands in larger, like those in Los Angeles and New York. In terms of competition, there are several other applications that focus on supporting the development of financial literacy skills, including the popular Mint app launched by Intuit. What sets Edable apart is the focus on providing access to adolescent users by creating digestible content for secondary school students, not individuals who have likely already graduated from secondary school. Similarly, Edable
is encroaching on a relatively untapped ecosystem of civic engagement tools and resources. There are few, if any, apps or learning platforms that explicitly support in the development of civic engagement skills and knowledge, which means Edable can help in greatly influencing this market segment. To this point, Edable has generated $2,000 in grant funding from the National Science Foundation. This has allowed for the development of a physical prototype and increased market research. Currently, we are in alpha development of the learning application. By the end of Q1 2020, we expect to have our beta application finalized for user testing. We anticipate a fully functioning application for general release by Q1 2021. In order to increase production and shorten the timeline for development, I'm asking for $10,000 in additional funding. 75% of that would go towards UI, UX, and app design. We would like to be able to hire additional front-end and back-end programmers. 15% would be used for increased market research and exposure, while the remaining 10% would be used for legal purposes, overhead costs, and other expenses. Today, more than ever, the need for Edable is growing exponentially. An investment in the future is an investment in today. Invest in Edable and secure our future.